Welcome to Sand Compounding. Behavioral economics and finance plays a very significant role in the decision making where human intelligence is involved. Especially why so? Because human intelligence and humans are totally influenced by the biases that we get involved in day-to-day basis. Lots and lots of research has been done in the field of behavioral economics and finance, and there are courses dedicated in leading universities for behavioral economics. In this session, we will understand, go little deep dive into what behavioral economics means and what are the references and what are the articles and materials we can refer to in an understanding behavioral economics and behavioral finance, especially with emphasis on investing. Let me introduce you to another famous professor of behavioral finance, behavioral science and economics, who also won a Nobel Prize for economics in 2017. It's Richard Thaler. Richard Thaler is an author of many books in behavioral economics like Nudge, Misbehaving, The Making of Behavioral Economics. Thaler's contributions have built a bridge between the economic and psychological analysis of individual decision making. Just like Daniel Kahneman's book and Amos Tversky's book, we have seen many behavioral scientists and behavioral professors, economists, whose work like Thinking Fast and Slow in some of other lecture sessions. Like that, I'm going to delve into Richard Thaler's works in behavioral economics, and he has done a lot of theses, a lot of experiments, some of them partnering with Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. And Richard Thaler's book Nudge is a great book. It provides a lot of insights, and he's also a founder of an asset management firm called Fuller and Thaler Asset Management, which capitalizes on the weakness of herd investors due to cognitive biases such as endowment effect, loss aversion, and status quo bias. Highlights of his work in the fields of behavioral economics include, first one, Thaler coined the term endowment effect. It's a very famous bias that is present in the behavioral science and economics market. And endowment effect is nothing but the tendency of individuals to value the items they own more than anything else they can procure or they are given to, and this is fundamentally the possessive nature of the human beings, and they tend to value more of things what they own. And this phenomenon relates also to the loss aversion in the prospect theory, which was the famous work of Kahneman and Tversky in 1979. Now, endowment effect has a lot of influence on the human behavior in financial markets as well. We tend to own the stocks which has done really well for us, especially when they are done really well for us. We tend to over on them, even if the prospects doesn't look that great. We tend to be very shy of disengaging with those stocks or selling those stocks. Classic examples are, even when Warren Buffett could have earned a lot from some of the new age technology firms, where if they had entered earlier than just owning Coca-Cola or American Express over the last 10-15 years. So it's purely people's choices, but endowment effect also plays to a great extent in influencing our behavior in the financial markets. A second contribution relates to self-control problems that prevents agents from carrying out their optimal plans even if they can compute them. Example, in the planner-doer model of Thaler, an individual is assumed to be both a myopic doer, that is short-term, who evaluates options only for their current utility, that's a near-term thinking, and a far-sighted planner. So a doer is short-sighted, whereas a planner is far-sighted, who is concerned with lifetime utility. Then the third work is on mental accounting, again a significant influencer. Mental accounting plays a big role in our day-to-day lives. Example of mental accounting is the greater willingness to pay for goods when using credit cards than cash. For example, if one uses a credit card to pay for tickets to a sporting event, they will tend to be willing to pay more than if they made the same bet with cash. That shows a human suboptimal decisions due to biases. This is applicable to even for us as investors. When we tend to get dividends from the stocks, that value is too small in comparison of the larger scheme of the capital that we invested in the stock, and we tend to not reinvest dividends, thinking how much can difference can that small amount make. But these are all mental accounting biases, which we can understand. It helps us to be better investors. And also he created the concept of libertarian paternalism, which is the idea that it is both possible and legitimate for private and public institutions to affect behavior while also respecting freedom of choice as well as the implementation of that idea. It's not much relating to, I cannot relate much to the finance or political, to the investment world. Rather it is more of political, how political parties and how political leaders influence the country and citizens' behavior. Especially this is applicable when it comes to deliberate choices the people of the country has to make when choosing their leaders. The next is the famous work. This is what I like the most, which is called the nudge technique. He coined the term choice architecture, which is the design of different ways in which choices can be presented to consumers and the impact that presentation on consumer decision making, the presentation has on the decision making. Example, the most often this is used in the marketing segment where consumers are shown in a particular way. The choices are architected in a particular way to the consumer that the consumer perceive things in a different way. It's a marketing technique as well. It's a nudge technique. It's a small feature in the environment that attracts. Nudge is nothing but, in English terms, nudge means push. It's a small feature in the environment that attracts our attention and influences the behavior we make. Nudging is done by choice architect for anyone who influences the decision we make. Someone decides, for example, the arrangement of food in the cafeteria in how we make decision. If they are health conscious and they want to make the employees health conscious, they can put the salad first. So the way the choices are given to us, we consumers tend to consume in that particular order. This is called nudge technique, and it's a very famous work by Richard Thaler. Hope you found this video informative to understand the impact of behavioral economics in businesses we do, in entrepreneurship, even in investing in financial markets, and even many other aspects of our day-to-day lives. Daniel Kahneman, Tversky, and Richard Thaler, and also even Charlie Munger has influenced us a lot, has contributed a lot in the field of behavioral economics. And we will have a dedicated session for what Charlie Munger contributed in towards behavioral sciences and biases and heuristics that human beings use, and that is a separate session that we'll go through. Please take a read at Richard Thaler's Nudge book, which is a famous book, and there are many papers he has published, so those papers are worth a read to understand the human behavior and behavioral economics, how that can have an impact in our investing and business world.